So welcome to today's webinar, everyone. My name is Paul Dunay, and I will be your host and moderator. Today's webinar is on Your Customer Experience Never Sleeps, Creating a 24/7 Partnership. And this webinar is brought to you by Social Media Today and our sponsor, LiveWorld. Now, before I get started, I wanted to let you know we're recording today's webinar, and we'll be posting a recap to the Social Media Today blog with things like key takeaways and a link to the replay and a copy of the slides, everything you could possibly ever want. So just sit back, relax, and join in today's conversation. Now, there's really two ways for you to join in the conversation, and that is via Twitter using the hashtag SMTLive, again, hashtag SMTLive, or via the GoToWebinar control panel. I will be looking in both of those places for your questions and getting them in front of our speakers. So let's go ahead and introduce today's speakers. We have Chad Mitchell, Senior Director of Digital Communications at Walmart, Michael Rose, Senior Director of Global Corporate Communications at Polycom, Bruce Dembecki, Vice President of Moderation Services at LiveWorld, and myself, Paul Dunay, your moderator. Now, our first speaker is going to be Chad, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the challenges behind the customer experience at Walmart. So, Chad, can you take it away?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Welcome to everyone to the webinar. It's an honor to be here. So let me jump right in and take you through a smaller version of what we're doing here at Walmart. Probably goes without saying that we are a slightly larger than normal size company, and so everything we do has a lot of different components to it, and so dealing with customers takes on a lot of different forms at Walmart. Our colleagues over in the digital marketing team really carry the burden of dealing with a lot of the typical customer feedback kinds of things that you are used to seeing on digital and social, and they're really addressing things from a B2C standpoint. My team sits over in the corporate affairs function of Walmart, and our day-to-day responsibility is really on protecting and defending the company's reputation. We wake up every morning, and our responsibility is handling our company's corporate social responsibility initiatives and engaging with customers that are slightly different than the way marketing approaches things. And so I want to take you through our 6 guiding principles that inform our content strategy, and then give you a view of the landscape here, the total holistic view of the landscape here at Walmart, and then how we each respectively handle engaging with customers. So here you see before you kind of the 6 principles that we arrived on earlier in the year for how we develop content and how we engage with our customers. Our customers in corporate affairs are really defined as occasional shoppers and opinion elites. So when you think about our core shoppers, the people who are in our stores every week and every day and every month, there's a lot of things about the company that they know and like and appreciate, and reinforcing a lot of the things that we're doing in the corporate social responsibility space aren't always necessary. They know us, they trust us, they shop with us, and so we really leave it to our colleagues in marketing who oversee our customer-facing channels to talk about things that are going on in the stores, specials, deals, all seasonal merchandise, things that they can get for Mother's Day, etc. So when we talk about the channels that we oversee, which encompass a corporate website, traditional website, a blog, and then a number of Twitter handles, we look at occasional shoppers who are the people who are in our stores not as often, obviously, as our core shoppers, and then opinion elites who can be defined as elected officials, media, folks from the investors community. And so those are the people that are following us, that are interacting with our content, that are engaging with us, and who we need to go out every day and reinforce the positive things that our company does and make sure that they're aware of key things that we're doing in the veterans hiring space or with regards to domestic manufacturing or sustainability. And so when we talk about customer engagement and the customer experience from our standpoint, we've really worked out a process with the marketing team whereby when we get comments, inquiries, people want to have conversations about things that are more customer facing and can be addressed through your traditional customer service channels or through marketing, there's kind of a process by which we hand that off, and then vice versa. So if there are inquiries on our marketing channels or on our customer-facing channels that are more around, things that we're doing in say disaster relief or women's empowerment, then they know to hand those things off with us. So there's some proactive work that we do on big announcement type things, and then there's reactive stuff that we do in the crisis communication space. So when we talk about our content strategy and the way that we build content for our channels to engage with our customers, it really comes down to 6 things that I don't think are entirely unique to Walmart, but really form the basis for how we develop content. And that's using a lot of data. I know that everybody does that these days, but really taking a look at data, testing out our content, and understanding what those key audiences that I talked about earlier, our occasional shoppers and our opinion elites, how they're engaging with our content, how their experience is going with us, and then obviously doing more of the stuff that works and less of the stuff that doesn't work. Shareability, I think everybody asks themselves this question every day, which is how do I create content and how do I engage with my customers in a way that they'll share and let other people know and then evangelize or advocate on behalf of the company. And it really comes down to 2 questions for us, which is why would I care and why would I share? And if we can answer those questions when we develop a piece of content, then regardless of how the numbers turn out, at least we think that we were headed in the right direction. Humanizing the story, clearly for a company our size with 2.2 million associates around the world and more than 10,000 locations, there's a lot of things that people think they know about the company. There's a lot of hard, held perceptions that may not be entirely based on experience, and so it's really our job to engage with those customers and those audiences that I talked about earlier to humanize the Walmart story and get them to understand what it is that we're doing in areas that are of importance to them. In this day and age, I think it's taking risks, but it's taking the appropriate risks. And so we have a lot of brand equity built up over 53 years. We are traditionally a pretty conservative company with regards to taking risks. And so I don't think you'll see us trying some things on social that may get written up or that people take a lot of notice of. We're fairly conservative on channels, but at times we'll take big risks with our content and the way that we engage with our customers. And then the last 2 I think are fairly straightforward. We have to remember at the end of the day that this is retail, and while our job is primarily to protect and defend the company's reputation, that we also need to help drive some sales, as this is just a retail operation. And then finally, it's about transcending the conversation, and this is really, I think, the key point for this group and for what we're doing, which is we build our channels and develop our audiences and create our content and then engage in conversations to build meaningful dialogue. We're out there looking to have an exchange of ideas with people who are somewhat skeptical or cynical about the company, as well as our core customers, so that we can give people a glimpse inside of the real Walmart that the folks that work here know and love and feel passionate about, and being able to give people a glimpse into that is what we think helps strengthen the tie with our customers, our occasional shoppers, and then those opinion elite audiences. So next slide. This here was shared with me from our colleagues over in marketing, but this really gives you a look at kind of the total holistic landscape, what we're dealing with here at Walmart, and the way that I said we share between digital marketing, who is really the customer's voice, the true B2C angle that you think about the customers that walk into our stores and transact with us. And this gives you a sense as to the volume overall, the number of followers that are on our respective channels. All told, in 2014, there were 2.2 million engagements from Walmart with our customers. Of those, a little over 100,000 of them fell into our area, which again is over in corporate communications. So that's 100,000 engagements with reporters, investors, elected officials, and occasional shoppers. And again, I think you look at it from the standpoint of which people are engaging with you that are actually interested in some meaningful dialogue that you can have a meaningful experience with. And so some of these comments are ones that we discard as to not being worthwhile. Everybody should have a voice, but some people you can just tell, and data can inform on whether or not they look to be having a meaningful conversation or whether they're just looking to bait us into some of the typical arguments that are held about Walmart. So we feel pretty good about where we are with marketing and the platforms that we use and the way that we process things. Clearly, with our company being global, we aspire to be 24/7. The marketing team clearly has systems that are put in place to look at customer comments throughout the night. For what we do over in corporate communications, we're pretty comfortable being sort of offline in the waking hours. And that really becomes a scalability issue for us and a resource issue. So there are hours where our monitoring systems will be down. If there's an emergency, then we'll be able to get to it, and we rely on our colleagues over in marketing to help us. But really it comes down to then looking at all these followers and all the volume that's being generated and understanding whose responsibility it is to engage with customers, make sure the customer experience is consistent across the brand. And through, I think, a lot of trial and error, and it's been about 3 years in the making now, we've landed in a place between us and marketing and the other people who control external communications channels at Walmart to understand who takes the lead, what are our agreed upon responses, what are our agreed upon engagement strategies, and then really working to make sure there's a consistent experience for our customers, whether those are the shoppers that are in our stores, whether that's the occasional shoppers or the opinion elites that I talked about earlier. So that wraps up my remarks now, and I'll turn it back to you, Paul.
Yeah, no, that's great. I couldn't help myself looking at all these numbers to just add up the top line, and it looks like somewhere around 44 million people are engaging with you, or at least the reach is around 44 million, and I'm sure there's a lot of crossover there, but just some eye-popping numbers. So my heart goes out to you with some of this, and obviously you guys are doing a great job. And I think your comments were appropriate in the sense of not everyone wants to talk to you about corporate social responsibility, so there's only a faction of that audience that you engage with, but still it's a heck of a base to draw from. So, all right, I'm going to turn it over to Michael, who's going to talk to us about the global customer experience at Polycom. But I want to remind you, we're going to be taking questions, so you can ask your questions to Chad or Michael or even Bruce coming up soon, as long as you put them into the GoToWebinar control panel or put them out on Twitter where I can find them. Okay, Michael, can you take it away?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Paul. And again, welcome everybody, and it's great to be here. An analyst recently stated that Polycom is obsessed with our customer experience, and I think this is very true and drives a lot of what we do in marketing and in particular corporate communications. So if we go to the next slide, this really sort of maps out a little bit of our sort of core social media strategy. And we're very lucky that, and I think it's more by default than design, we have 3 primary locations that report into me globally to cover our social media activity. And this really does give us a follow the sun mentality and a 24/7 always on ability to listen and engage with our customers. And as it says there, we very much are focused on what this means from a content strategy, so what we develop and serve up to our followers. It also influences our 27 global web properties, helps us develop and refine social campaigns, and finally at the end I'll talk a little bit about trend jacking, something that we've been experimenting with probably for the last 1 or 2 years. But core for us too is using platforms like Radian 6 to really give us the social media metrics so that we are listening, measuring, and engaging. And from this really helps, as I said, to drive content strategy. We use our customer stories to really showcase how the solutions we have at Polycom are helping their business success. And what that even means is the content that we then point them to on our websites is refined and shaped to meet these needs based on what we're hearing. And in fact, and one of our marketing colleagues asked me to do a plug, if you come back to the Polycom websites in about a month's time, we're actually completely changing these to reflect more of a customer experience. So if we go to the next slide, I talked a little bit there about how it also helps to shape social campaigns. Quite often our customers globally have been saying, yep, we love your solutions, but we just would like to get more out of them. So that gave sort of rise to a very simple campaign called Polycom How To, which has been short Vine and Twitter videos to help showcase some of the easy ways that people can get the best out of their audio, video, and content sharing solutions that they have from Polycom. And again, sometimes too, these are even born out of customer feedback or even customer questions that we get directly through the engagement process on social. And we're constantly looking to refine this type of content so it's easy to digest. And I think most of us are aware that a lot of people do social media in a social snacking sort of way when they're on the go. So these have been very much developed and refined to be delivered on mobile devices. So if we go then to the next slide. Driving social relevancy. I mean, we live in sort of the IT sphere, but really at the end of the day, my role is more about engaging with our customers and the business verticals that they operate in. One of the areas that we've been working through over the last, as I said, 1 to 2 years is taking advantage of other big social media activities to really have a point of view and then add value to what our customers are looking for. So the 2 examples on the left there of the screen are around the World Cup last year. And we did quite a few tweets, Facebook posts, and blogs on how organizations can use teleworking tools, video collaboration to really help staff that really want to be obsessed with the World Cup to watch it, but still be productive in a business and work environment. The taxi there is all about the the UK Clean Air campaign. And again, the link with our solution is if you telework, you can work from home, you're not adding to the carbon footprint. So again, a very clever way of just getting in and being part of other conversations which can help us get to new audiences and again, talk from the customer experience and how a solution has benefited them. And finally, we see infographics are a very clever way of engaging people through social. And a lot of the customers have given feedback on this, and as do the media. We often see media taking the infographics that we're developing and then using them in broader stories further down the track. And then if we go to the final slide, again, we're always on 24/7, and social media now really does allow us to have that two-way voice with the customer. And we do get questions which get filtered back through, our listening posts very quickly. As you can see there, we responded very fast and got a good response from the customer. And what was nice too, our co-founder, Jeff Rodman, actually saw that we'd done this and was extremely pleased that these channels are being used to amplify what we do with the customer. Interestingly too, this then became a how-to campaign just to give customers very simple advice on how they can do exactly what this person had asked. So what we've seen globally is a greater engagement over the last year or two, and I think content is key here to ensure that we're delivering material that is relevant to our customers. It's more about thought leadership than product positioning. But a lot of what we then provide them drives them to our website so they can have a deeper, richer relationship with what we have to offer. And with that, I'll pass back to you, Paul.
Yeah, no, that's great, Michael. I really appreciate it. I love the idea of these snackable little Vine videos that cover a unique aspect of your product because, and especially because you made it very accessible on mobile because, you got to imagine the person sitting there in a conference room and they're trying to, video conference or dial in or do something. And there it is right there. They've got the video, all laid out for you, and it's 6 seconds or less. And, great job. Good thought and way to use that for a good means. All right, we're going to turn it over to Bruce, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the customer experience and how it's much more than just customer service. But I want to remind you, we're taking questions as soon as Bruce is done. So keep them coming. Bruce?
Thanks, Paul. Hi, everybody. Can I get the next slide, please? So one of the things that we hear from, Chad talks about his experiences and Michael's talking about the customer service piece. There's lots of different players involved in your social activities, and you've really got to sit down and figure out who that is. Obviously, marketing tends to be the owner of most social programs these days. Customer service should have some efforts going on in social media. Corporate affairs, obviously, has got their things going on. Depending on the nature of the organization, if you're a pharma company or a bank or something, you may have legal or compliance or both. And like any marketing program, you might have an agency involved as well. And so one of the things that we see with agencies are that they can be very helpful with crafting the marketing message. They're not always the best choice for how do I run a 24-hour day operation. Agencies tend not to be 24-hour day operations. And they can become expensive in unknown ways. You have, it doesn't cost me anything. It's all sort of built into the retainer. but it adds up pretty quickly, and so it can be a very hidden cost. Next slide, please. One of the key questions is, what should my operation look like? If I'm thinking about 24 hours a day, do I need to do 24 hours a day? Do I need to provide customer service 24 hours a day? If you are a big an airline, for example, then yes, customer service is important 24 hours a day. A lot of other places don't need to have that direct customer service contact, but you still need your brand protected around the clock. And that's one of the things that we do at LiveWorld is we help our clients identify what the customer needs are and protect them around the clock. Next slide, please.
Yeah. Hey, Bruce, can I jump in here for a second? So I'm getting some reaction from the crowd that they can't hear you as well as maybe some of the other speakers. So the other speakers can go on mute, and maybe you can get a little closer to your Polycom microphone, perhaps. That might be very helpful. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. I'll try and speak a little louder. So one of the other questions we see a lot is, how do we get our customer service people involved in doing this? There's a lot of things that happen. We do a lot of work with United, for example, and the content that comes in through the social media channels, most of it is not relevant to customer service. There's a lot of stuff about Manchester United, for example. United care about Manchester. It's a market they fly into, but most of the content that people are mentioning on Twitter has nothing to do with the airline. So try not to waste the customer service resource sorting out the things that are happening on social media. Use specialized social media resources that can figure out what's important and then escalate things to the customer service team or anywhere else. For Walmart, we're pulling things out that need to go to customer service. We're pulling things out that need to go to Chad's team. And as we find the different content, we can sort it through and then give it to the right people. Next slide, please. One of the other things we often see people struggle with is the workflow. Most companies have workflows around customer service. They have workflows around the other things that go on. For example, in the pharma companies, we have this adverse event monitoring, and they need to report things that go wrong with the drugs to the FDA in a timely manner. Now, there are workflows in place already with these organizations, and adding a social to this shouldn't need to reinvent the wheel. You just have to find the best way to plug social into what's going on. So the best thing to do is make sure you find tools that will work with the way you work and don't reinvent your systems around social completely. Next slide, please. So with moderation, we do all sorts of work for all sorts of clients. The key things we look at, the biggest clients that we help are people that see themselves in this category of hated companies. Airlines, cable companies, often medical insurance companies, regulated industries, pharma companies, banks, and then global brands. With United, the work we do is they are very high volume, but they're also very focused on the client, and they're focused on the client around the clock, 24 hours a day. So our job is to look at all the stuff coming in on social media that could be directed to United, figure out whether it is or whether it isn't, and then put it in the hands of the right customer service agent. If it's not a customer service issue, but it still needs to go to marketing or corporate communications, we can identify that, and we can put it on somebody's desk so when they come to work the next morning, it's there and ready for them. Next slide, please. So finally, when you think about moderation and you think about what your ideal moderation partner would look like, we would like to sort of tell you that you want local moderators, you want a team that's available 24 hours a day so that you can sleep, and that's critical, and you want to be able to scale so that we can meet the demands of the brand. At this point, I'll throw it back to you, Paul.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate your points, and I think we're going to go into Q&A right now. That's what I think. All right, so I'd like to begin with this idea of trend jacking. Michael, you mentioned it. I saw it got a good reaction out on Twitter. Don't exactly have a specific question for you about it, but let's go over the specifics of that and what you mean when you say trend jacking.
Yep. I think for us, first thing, it has to be relevant. So, you can look out there at what hashtags and other stories are circulating. And if you pick the wrong ones that don't align with your brand and your customers, you can look opportunistic. So, we're always about looking for examples that can showcase the Polycom brand, Polycom solutions. One that we've been focusing on this year is the workplace of the future, because really what we're all about is helping customers drive to that. So I think trend jacking just allows you an opportunity to get on the, to get into bigger picture items that are being talked about and get to new audiences that may then want to come and engage with you further down track.
All right, fair enough. Chad or Bruce, do you guys participate in any of that, or is that kind of an active thing that you see going on in your area?
Yeah, Paul, it's something that we've definitely experimented with at Walmart, and I agree with the earlier points that when it's not done right, I think it is awkward and it's actually detrimental to your brand. So, in the early days, I think we were looking at news stories that you might be able to get involved with and leverage, and then I think some of its earliest forms, I was referring to it almost as predatory tweeting. So you'd almost be eavesdropping on somebody else's conversation and then jump in with an offering from your brand. And I agree that that's not really relevant to the audience, and it's not very authentic. It's very salesy, and it's you're trying to jump in on a conversation and drop a product down somebody's throat. And so I think you have to look for a really the right opportunity and see what people are talking about, and if it's relevant. So, for us, as you get closer to Memorial Day, for instance, and if there were a conversation about veterans and the challenges they face when they return home in terms of finding jobs, then I think Walmart's got a very compelling story to tell, and I can see us jumping in and offering a point of view there. But I also think we look a lot at SEM when it comes to, I guess, trend jacking or news jacking to see what are the relevant search terms that might be appropriate for us, and where could we insert Walmart into that conversation as people are searching for items, news, key topics where we think we've got something compelling to say and can offer a value to the customer and what they're looking for.
Yeah, right. It can be kind of a double-edged sword, right? That's what I think I'm hearing, from your perspective. The one that comes up in my mind is that Oreo's tweet during the Super Bowl, during that blackout, where it was like you can still dunk in the dark, if you remember that one, right? That was sort of like elegant, and even though it was a product-oriented message, it had an element of humor to it. It was, reasonable. It was done reasonably well, right? And that's something that I'm not sure if we define that as trend jacking, but that's an example in case the audience is thinking about what would a good example be. Okay, so we're going to move on to another question. This one in from Twitter. Longtime supporter of Social Media Today webinars, Dan Gingiss, would like to know what companies are doing customer service especially well on social media. So this is a question really for everybody. Maybe you can give us, Bruce, maybe we can start with you and give us one or two of your favorites, and then Michael and Chad, if you can give us someone that you admire that's in the same space, that would be great. So Bruce?
Right off the top of my head, the first answer I'm going to come up with is United Airlines. They're very sensitive to what it is that customers are saying, and they realize that a customer swearing at them on Twitter in the middle of the night, many brands would sort of step away from that, but United sees that as an opportunity. It sees it as a cry for help, with somebody who's in pain and needs their assistance. So they have taken their a team of regular customer service agencies, and they've moved them into the marketing department. They work around the clock, and their job is to find those things that we're finding the things for them, but they're actually then engaging them in the same way that any other customer service agent does. They're using the same tools, they're accessing the same computer system, and they're helping the customer sort out the needs. So that really thing of saying, a customer that's upset, the language may not be great, but if it's a cry for help, it's time to help them.
Right. Right. Okay. Excellent example. Michael, did you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Paul. I think the airlines do a great job, not just United. I think a lot of them do a fantastic job globally. And I know, having come out of Asia recently myself, where customer service in some markets is not always the best, having used social media, I think it's allowed them to possibly institutionalize how they do customer service, but it certainly has made them more reactive. And a brand here would be someone like Singapore Airlines, who have a great reputation in the air, but not necessarily so much on the ground in the way they deal with their customers pre-boarding. So I think airlines are really leading some of this customer service activity, and some of the hotel chains too are starting to make some great inroads here in engaging with customers and providing 24/7 help.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was thinking hotels as well, Michael. We had a guest on one of the Social Media Today webinars, I don't know, a few months back, and I can't remember what hotel exactly, but they were doing some really fantastic customer service things. My eggs are cold, and and they're upset, and they got right on it. So I mean, it's a fantastic way of going about it. Chad, any suggestions from your aspect?
Yeah, there's three that come to mind, and the reason I went with three is because I just didn't want to repeat my colleagues and mention an airline, but I will throw a shout out towards American. Being in the business, I think I have a certain layer of or level of sensitivity to lighting up my colleagues on social, but I couldn't help myself with American a couple weeks ago with a bad connection through Dallas, and they had refunded my leg home before I even knew what had happened. So I think American's doing a great job. And then I was thinking, Paul, you might be talking about Hilton. Hilton's doing some really cool things where you can ask them for dinner recommendations, how to get around a city, even if you're not staying with them. So I think they're doing some really cool things to engage with their own customers and probably win over some others. But the one that I would mention, just to stand out a little bit from mentioning the airlines and hotels, is Chipotle. And Chipotle Tweets, I think, is really amazing in terms of how fast they respond to customers and how fast they've gotten back to me personally, and just watching their handle is something that I would aspire for Walmart to be, because I think culturally we'd like to respond to everything, and I think we did a great job with, between all of our teams having over 2 million comments and folks but trying to interact with us, but at some point you can't scale to handle everything that we have incoming. So culturally, I think that's where we want to be, and then institutionally, how do we get there? So those are three that really stand out for me.
Yeah, no, I really like those. Thank you very much. And it does bring out a question that came in from Renee Lisi, who's also a longtime supporter of Social Media Today webinars. So welcome again, Renee. Renee wanted to know what type of processes are really needed to be 24/7. And I think when we were highlighting this and I was listening to you, Chad, it was like, yeah, you're going to need technology, you're going to need some processes in place. Michael, I know you've got that follow the sun thing. That's probably a part of your answer, so maybe you can editorialize a little bit on. So what does it take to really be 24/7 in this area?
Yeah, I think firstly, as you said, you need to have listening posts in each of your key geographies so you can make real-time decision making and address any issues, but also just picking up on trends and amplifying any engagement that you get. In addition to us also having sort of 3 core sites that I drive out of global corporate comms, we encourage each of our markets to pick up a social media platform that may be relevant to them. For example, I think we would have all seen last year the big growth in Facebook following out of India. I mean, they actually ran their election for their new Prime Minister through Facebook. So Facebook has been a good platform which allows great real-time conversation. And then I think just over the top of this, overlaying proper metrics. So the Radian 6 platform provides us with dashboards that really do showcase where the engagement's happening, what people are saying, and so that we can then cross-check that we're following up, we're being responsive, and we're listening.
All right, fantastic. Chad, I'm sure you probably got some technology under the hood. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so some of it is technology-based, Paul, and then some of it is just partnering with our in-country posts. So clearly, Walmart's a global company. What a lot of people probably don't understand is that we operate under 26 or 27 different banners across the world, and so we're not necessarily Walmart. We're Asda in the UK, we're Massmart in South Africa, etc. And so I think about Bangladesh, and when we came up on the 1 year and now 2 year anniversary of the collapse of the factory in Rana Plaza, how do you monitor for a global conversation? And I think that really ran us through some tough process questions as you think about how to monitor for that. And again, that's definitely a reputational issue. There's not a lot of customers in the United States who are banging on our marketing handles to find out, what Walmart's done since that incident. But it is a reputational threat, and where we source all of our products is something that we need to manage very closely to protect our reputation. And so in that case, we partnered with our agency that supports Asda in the UK. And so this follow the sun mentality or idea is somewhat easier for us, I guess, to put into practice because of our size and scale, and it may not be repeatable by everybody, but we're able to look at our partners then in Japan, China, across the globe and tap into who their agencies are using. So for us, it's not a matter of using one platform around the world. It's about partnering with those agencies in those countries to give us listening posts around the world.
Okay, fantastic. Bruce, any thoughts on going 24/7? What's the best practice there?
I think one of the things is when people start talking about tools is to remember that social is about people. And at the end of the day, people will look at content and make better decisions about what to do with it and what it means than software ever will. And so the question is, how do you present the people with the information in a way that can effectively scale? If you're Walmart and you're dealing with the we know from first-hand experience that the tens of thousands of comments a day that come directed at Walmart. How do you do that in a scalable and effective way? And one of the other questions that was the question that was really asked was, what are the best processes? What should be running 24 hours a day and what shouldn't? It depends and it varies. As I said, an airline, they need to have 24-hour-a-day customer support. A smaller brand, customers don't really expect an answer at 2 in the morning to some of the questions. But the brand still needs protection at 2 in the morning. If there are things going wrong, that they need to be told. So moderation is usually a good step because moderation could be the gateway to all the other things that are going on within the company. So we can feed stuff to customer service, we can feed stuff to corporate communications, we can feed stuff to marketing. All of those different things can just come through effective and efficient moderation.
Right. Okay, great. Bruce, I got a very specific question for you from Rich Kramer. Rich wants to know that you mentioned, I guess, specialized resources, not customer service, to manage social. So what he wanted to know was, what are the top attributes of these specialized resources team in order to manage social media?
Well, I think what I was trying to get at is that you have people doing jobs like customer service. They have a specific skill that they're looking at. And all of these areas, if Chad was to have to look at all the stuff that came in at Walmart, that wouldn't be good use of Chad's time. Someone needs to sort of figure that out and say, these are the things that are important. So exactly what makes that person, we have a team of several hundred moderators at LiveWorld. We can talk about what it is that makes a moderator, but it's not necessarily always the LiveWorld model that's going to be best. It's what works for each and every company. But generally, don't sucker your customer service support team with looking at all this stuff. It's not effective use of their time. And so it's the same thing, not good use of the agency's time either. Usually because the agency isn't working 24 hours a day.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I did get a question, and Rich says thank you, by the way. Lovely. All right, I got another question for Bruce and the other speakers around the value of engaging fans in conversation, not just handling customer support issues. I think the supposition here is we might be rotating a little bit too much in the customer support realm. This person wants to know more about what's the value of engaging fans in conversation. Bruce, do you want to take a shot at this since you've got the mic, and then we'll move to Michael and then Chad?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, and I said this earlier, and I'll say this 100 times over, social is about people. As a brand, we get lots of good value and information from what our customers are saying about us. Any brand should have the ability to hear what people are saying, and if you like, listen to that. But engaging customers is one of the key ways that you can actually amplify the value of social media. If I have a listener base of 1 million people, and 1,000 of them sort of engage with me and talk about that stuff, then their people, their followers will also be seeing what's going on and seeing that engagement. And so this is the whole organic reach thing and how you get the best value out of that. So the more you engage, the better your organic reach goes up.
Reminds me a little bit of the Chipotle tweets handle, Chad. I was just looking at that, and they've got a lot of very good engagement there with customers. They're engaging them in a conversation. They've got pictures. They've got people making food. It's along those lines. Would you agree, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay.
The more you share, the more you get your users to share, the more people see what you're saying.
Okay. All right, Michael, thoughts on the value of engaging your customers in this conversation? Clearly you're doing that with some of your Vine videos, and there must be some other ways as well that are probably top of mind for you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and again, I think it's following on what Bruce said. This is, social media is about people, and for us at Polycom, it's really allowing our customers to tell our story, but more importantly, how our solutions have helped their business and their business success. So we often partner with customers and our partners to produce social media assets. It could be a short video, it could be a social media campaign, to really talk and engage about what they've done, what they're finding from our solution, and then that again looks at the organic growth because they talk to their audiences who may not have heard about us or our solutions before. We do a lot of this too when we're going to trade events or big partner events, is engaging with people ahead of the event through social. So we're actually building social relationships ahead of the conference in the hope that we can strike up a deeper relationship with them once they get to the event or conference. So I think allowing fans, as you called it, to speak for us is an excellent way of us, just getting out there and telling the story.
Right. Now, Chad, you've got a little bit of a different angle since a lot of your conversations, have direct impact because of the corporate affairs piece of the puzzle, the corporate social responsibility. And so you must see value that comes through from that accrues back to the company, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's pretty impossible to disagree with anything that my co-panelists have already said. I'm searching for something to say that would be additive to this conversation, but I think to not engage with your fans is a huge miss. For us, it's not necessarily about the transaction, but it may be a pat on the back for an initiative we've announced, support for some practice that we've put in, and I think that I heard the word amplification earlier. I think that's what it's all about. Not only digital amplification, but I know my personal experience when you have great customer service is to tell everyone about it, so the word of mouth benefits, and engaging with your fans and making sure that they know that you care and that you're listening, that you're there. I agree completely with everything that's been said. It's about people, it's about those relationships. So to overlook your fans or your core customers or the people that are saying nice things about you would be really foolish.
Right, and we'll get into metrics in a few minutes. I've got a couple of questions that we'll talk about specific metrics and maybe how you measure some of that impact. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, Chad, I got a very specific question for you from John Hurst, who wanted to know what distinguishes your local Facebook from your national one. And I guess we can sort of approach this question as sort of what's the difference between those two things, but also like how do you keep that all straight?
Yeah, great question, John. And so for those of you on the phone that are not entirely familiar with it, we've got the national Walmart Facebook page, which I referenced there on that slide that has 35 million fans. And then our team over there in digital marketing was, I think, at the bleeding edge of some of the localization that went on and built local pages for all of our 4,500 stores in the United States. Some of them are repetitive. You know, you've got, it all comes down to then your people. I mean, I think that's a pretty common theme in this webinar. So it all comes down to the store manager and the associates that are in that store and how active they want to be in keeping those pages up to date and making them hyper local, so that if you were to surf around that ecosystem and go from store to store, region to region, city to city, you may see some similarities in the products and the promotions and the conversations that are unfolding. I would hope what you would find is a lot of uniqueness in terms of recognizing our long-term associates and spotlighting some customers and things that are happening, because at the end of the day, for as big as we are, we still pride ourselves on being a store of the community, and so those pages should take on a local flavor. But I'm sure everybody on the phone has probably tried to scale a large organization, and so it really comes down to how much do the local store operators and merchants want to be involved in that? How much content can they put into there? How much time and energy can they devote to it? And it's an evolution that's in process. Some of them are better than others. But I think there's great value, and as we think about some of the big, broad corporate social responsibility initiatives that we've launched, and earlier this year when we announced a commitment to our associates to raise wages and benefits and educational opportunities, we took that down to a local level and tried to localize those stories as much as we could and make sure that people understood the impact to their community and what raised wages and all those opportunities would mean. And we were able to partner with our colleagues in marketing to get it down to that level. So great question, John, and I think it's something to keep an eye on, because I think it's a great opportunity for us and a lot of runway there in terms of how we use those pages to engage with our customers.
Great. Okay, so I promised we'd talk about metrics. I did get it. Okay, sorry. Michael?
Sorry, Paul. Michael, I was just going to add to that too. We do similar to what Chad said, and it also enables or allows us to go into our non-English speaking markets and have a direct voice with those communities, because the 3 core regions I look after are all done in English, and of course we're a global company too. So it also affords us an opportunity to speak very locally with the different platforms that we have in each market.
Right, I'm sure we could probably do an international, how to go international via social kind of webinar, because I know there's a lot of interest in that. So, John, again, thank you very much for your question. Okay, so I wanted to move towards metrics. I got a bunch of questions. One that I thought was kind of cool that I want to highlight, and then we can talk about general metrics. But Brian Hall wanted to know, what's your average daily volume from a social team perspective, and then what kind of staffing do you need to support that? So I think he's looking for sort of like a metric of, if you have, 10,000 mentions a day, I need 1 person, or something along those lines to be able to read and handle all those kinds of things. Does that sound familiar to anybody on the panel that could maybe talk about that particular kind of metric before we move into just sort of what do you keep your eyes on kind of a metric?
Sure, this is Bruce, and we have
Yep.
we have a lot of experience with that issue from multiple different ways. On one end of the scale, we do all the moderation work for Walmart, where the volumes are very high, and they're seasonal as well. So you might be dealing with several thousand comments a day most of the year, and then sort of late November through Christmas, you might be dealing with 500,000 comments a week. So that can fluctuate greatly. United is sort of 20 to 40,000 comments a week. And then, we have other brands that are working with 300 to 500 comments a day. And so the question on how do you structure to those sorts of levels and what's the right level for me is going to vary from one person to the next. We have clients that want 24-hour-a-day coverage, even they're only dealing with 300 comments a day. That's about an hour's work for us. Yet they don't want stuff sitting unattended on their social properties for 23 hours. So they want to make sure that their content is being looked at and being handled in a timely and effective manner, regardless of the volume. So the answer is sort of somewhere in between. Do I take 3 or 4 hours a day? Do I have an intern that handles it during the day and let it rest till tomorrow? All of those things people are doing. What is the right answer is very hard to tell. So
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think the question's based on where does it become overload? Like you can't read it all in a day, right? Because there is a limit there, like how much you could actually read in a day and potentially react to, right? So that's a finite amount of time. And then once you're beyond that, you need tools, you need support. If it's global, you need resources in maybe various languages or various parts of the globe. So it is very dependent on your business need. Like you mentioned, that one client who was like, I want to make sure it absolutely gets responded to, as soon as possible. That's very different.
Right, and so the tipping point for most companies is right around 300 comments a day, and it's not a big number. It's not scary, but if you've only got some person inside your organization who has a real job and also has to look at this stuff, that's about the point where it becomes more than they can handle. And
excellent.
Most organizations will have somebody that sort of, we want you to look at social as well as all your other stuff.
Yeah. Yep. That's definitely how it gets going.
So we see that overload at about 300 posts a day.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So let's move to metrics you keep your eye on. Chad, maybe you want to talk a little bit about when you come in the morning, you're having your coffee. What kind of numbers are you looking at, and what are those KPIs?
Man, if I had figured that out, I think I would have bottled it up and sold it to everybody on the phone. This to me, I think, is the holy grail of what we do. And every time I think we're close, it kind of slips through your fingers and it moves. And it's like an oasis out there and trying to understand exactly how all these things ladder up. I try to expose myself to as much as I can on this topic especially. And you look at, people talk about the sales funnel and conversion and all those kinds of things. And it's a slightly fuzzy thing for us to try to measure because you're really talking about reputational impact. And so engaging with a customer or one of the members of those key audiences, we're not really trying to tie it back to sales. We're trying to tie it back to a reputational lift. And so have we turned the tide on what people think about us as a company and where our reputation is? And I really think, Paul, for us, it comes down almost to a one-on-one anecdotal. You can see it right in front of you, right in your feed, that you got something, you got an inquiry, you got a compliment, whatever it is, you engaged, and there was some meaningful outcome. So, we can look at mentions and impressions and likes and favorites and all those kinds of things, and then trying to ladder it up to a lift in reputation and then tie it back to the overall perception of the company has been challenging and elusive, and it's still one that we're searching for. At the end of the day, what I think I've discovered in the search now going on 2 years is that there is no one size fits all. And every time somebody's told me that they figured it out and you go in to talk to them, I think it's very specific to each company and each brand and each organization that's measuring and looking at these KPIs to figure out what it is that means, what it matters to them and why they're in the space. So I think the one thing that I feel good about saying is I might not be able to tell you why we're in this space and what we get out of it, but I can tell you why you wouldn't want to be, why you should be in this space. So that didn't come out very eloquently, but it's a matter of you have to be there. And I think we've gotten past the point where you were several years ago where your C-suite was asking why you were even in the space or what's the value of social. That's kind of a foregone conclusion now, and now we're trying to get very granular to figure out exactly how we quantify the results of our efforts.
Right. And I think it's a very fair answer for you to say, because the way I heard you say what you said was it's hand-to-hand combat. This one person could be the swing factor for a lot, when it comes to their perception of the brand and the processes and the campaigns that you're running from a corporate social responsibility perspective. I think it's fair. It's not quantity. You're not in a quantity game. Let's
Paul,
put it that way.
It's a double-edged sword. Everybody's got a voice, but everybody's got a voice. So we're long past an era where there were 3 major networks and a handful of major newspapers that carried the day's news, and now a small group of very influential people online can have a great impact to your company. So to overlook the fans or the critics, I think, is definitely not the spirit of where we're trying to go. And it's every person has a voice, and everybody needs to be treated with respect, and their voice matters. So hand-to-hand combat's probably the right way to sum it up.
Love it. Okay, Michael, talk to us a little bit about maybe what you're looking at from a metric standpoint for your team.
I think, yeah, thanks, Paul. I think very similar to the other two speakers, and I like what you said, Chad, about if we had it right, we'd actually package it, sell it, and probably retire. I think it's always evolving how we approach what we do on social. So, we used to be obsessed with follower numbers, but to some extent you need a certain number of followers to start creating a little bit of conversation. Now we're looking more at engagement. Me personally, I have a list of key influencers that I track. So these could be key analysts that talk about us all the time, or key media, key customers. So I think I'm trying to do more qualitative stuff to really see what conversations are out there and what they're saying about us, and then how do we respond to that accordingly. We are exploring now too how this ties back into sales. So we're doing a little bit of, social selling as a strategy development idea within Polycom. So, that'll probably be the next evolution to see, can we turn what we're doing today into another part of the sales pipeline. So I think it will always be evolving. And as Chad said too, there's new tools coming out in the market every other day. I've had the team running around here lately using Periscope. So they've been obsessively showing live videos of things just to experiment with that as a platform. So that's the other thing that's a challenge for all of us, is keeping up to date with the new tools and saying, where does this fit within my strategy and within my social mix?
Right, but the one metric that you mentioned that I kind of liked was this idea of, and it's sort of a management metric, not necessarily just a general reach metric, of what % of these people are our global priority accounts or national priority accounts or strategic accounts, or whatever you call them. We all have them. So how much are we really engaging with the people we really want to be engaging with? That's I don't know. Yeah. We need a good acronym for that particular metric.
And that's very relevant, And if we go back every now and again and cleanse out followers, because you have the bots and you have people that just like following anybody. We don't really need conversations with them. So number of followers is not vital. It's more, who are the followers, and are these important people, that we want to engage with. Right.
All right, Bruce, I'm running a little short on time. Can you give us a short answer to the question of metrics, which is sort of an oxymoron, but go ahead, give it a shot.
So our focus on metrics is really looking at it and seeing what is it that we can learn from a human perspective, and providing some insight into what's happening on social that will be meaningful to our customers. If you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of comments a day, you can't take away everything that's being said. So, we use our people to take a measure of each post and tell us something about it. In its simplest form, is it positive, is it negative, is it on topic, or is it off topic? That expands across a greater area, but at the end of the day, we can roll out a report to Walmart that says, look, we get 15% of the people are talking about this, and this thing is an issue, and 80% of your content is positive, whatever it might be. But it's meaningful numbers that help you understand something valuable from social, because real humans look at the content and tell you what it means.
Right. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And that's all the time we have for questions today. I'd like to thank our sponsor, LiveWorld, and our speakers, of course, Bruce, Michael, Chad, for your time, but also the audience. You guys really help keep this content alive, and we love your questions and want your questions, so just keep them coming. I want to remind you that the Social Shakeup is coming in 20 days. We are 20 days away, and I can give you 7 good reasons to attend the Social Shakeup in Atlanta. Are you ready? Coke, Arby's, Whole Foods, NASA, Microsoft, Twitter, Facebook, and many more are going to be there presenting and hearing from them, much like you hear from them on these webinars. So I would definitely be there. In fact, I know I will. So I'm looking forward to moderating a panel on big data with folks like Scott Monty and others. So look forward to that. Also remember that there's still time. You can win if you tweet why you want to go to the Social Shakeup, so go ahead and do that. And don't forget, there'll be a Social Shakeup coming in the fall in London. So later this week, on the 21st, we have an upcoming webinar. It's going to be moderated by Robin Carey around data to decisions using social insights for better campaigns. Always a great topic. and we've got a great panel for you there. I look forward to you speaking with you next week on another Social Media Today webinar, so we'll speak to you then. Thank you all for joining.